Hi everyone, it's Alyssa and this is Always Cinema Chic. Today I'm going to do part 3 of my analysis of Blade Runner 2049. I just went to the theater yesterday and I saw it for a third time and I came home with a slew of new ideas. So this video is really going to focus on the importance of love, the emotion, not the character, as well as further connections to the Bible, color symbolism, and bee symbolism. So I have 2 other videos where I go over pretty much everything else in the film, and I'll link them right up here. And as always, there are a ton of spoilers in this, so if you haven't seen the film, please do not watch this. So starting off, the thing that really surprised me about this film is how much it's about love and connectedness, and not just romantic love, although it does certainly address that, but also familial love and love of community. And the film really asks the questions, can humanity, and I would put the replicants in that category as well, can they ever attain joy and happiness? And I think that the film really states a resounding yes, they can. So first I'm going to start with romantic love and how that is addressed in the film. And the first question there is, how can the replicants ever achieve genuine love if they have been programmed to only provide specific tasks? So the Wallace Corporation and the humans in general seem to be obsessed with checking the male replicants to make sure that they are not feeling any kind of connection, because male replicants are used for labor and just brute enforcement, whereas the female replicants appear to be only used for physical pleasure and emotional connection, except for love maybe. So they are never tested to make sure that their emotions remain in check. The fear is that if any of the male replicants begin to have some kind of connection, then they can just grow emotionally. So we see that the police department has a strict hold over their Blade Runners. So when Kay comes back in, he has to go through the baseline test, which basically checks to see whether or not he's having any kind of unnecessary or unsubstantiated emotions. But the lines that they give him to read are just so telling and important. So they come from Nabokov's Pale Fire, and it's from the poetry section of that novel, and it reads as follows. So, a system of cells interlinked within cells, interlinked within cells, interlinked within one stem, and dreadfully distinct against the dark, a tall white fountain played. Cells, cells. Have you ever been in an institution? Cells, cells. Do they keep you in a cell? Cells, cells. When you're not performing your duties, do they keep you in a little box? Cells, cells, interlinked. What's it like to hold the hand of someone you love? Interlinked, interlinked. Did they teach you to feel finger to finger? Do you long for having your heart interlinked, interlinked? Do you dream about being interlinked, interlinked? What's it like to hold your child in your arms? Interlinked. Do you feel that there's a part of you missing? Interlinked. Within cells, interlinked. And then he says it 3 times. Now, without the context of the novel, which I do plan on reading, the words remind me of a desire for connectivity, individuality, and family. The concept that each soul desires to be connected to each other, but at the same time also desires to be distinct. And at this point, Kay really is an allegorical, unenlightened human being at this point, but the fact that we keep seeing this book in the film means something. So we see it 2 other times because Kay is actually reading Pale Fire at home. And so Joy asks Kay if he wants to keep reading it to her, and then Lieutenant Joshi picks it up when she goes to his apartment. The fact that Kay has the book where the baseline comes from exhibits his natural curiosity to better understanding himself. Yet at the end of the day, it's really Joy who pushes Kay to read the book. The female replicants actually allow the male replicants to delve more deeply into their sense of self. And that's probably because the programming is different for the females than the males. So the females are there as kind of like pleasure models, and as a result they are given much more emotion, and it's that emotion that leads them down a path of questioning. So Joy understands how to make Kay feel better about himself every day. Now, while she begins the film with mundane comments such as, "What a day," or "It must have been a rough one." These types of questions and comments are forcing her programming to develop to the point where Wallace no longer has control over this model of joy. The same kind of development happens for the other female replicants like Frieza and Mariette. It really does seem like the male replicants, in order to challenge themselves and move forward, they need to be exposed to the female replicants. So, at the end of the day, Kay still would have found out that he at least thinks that he's the child of Deckard and Rachel, but he may not really have done anything with that information. But it's Joy who really pushes him towards that mode of self-discovery and finding out his past and his identity. And if it weren't for her pushing him, I don't think he ever would have gotten there. Now, I covered this in my last video. I had said, is Joy real? Because really, if she's just a program from the Wallace Company who looks exactly like what you want her to look like, and she says exactly, what you want to hear, then this could be just a kind of mirror of Kay's own subconscious, and then we could just call it a day. But there's also a lot of evidence to show that Joy really does act of her own free will in the film. So in the first scene, we see Joy. She does offer Kay the many different types of women that she can be. So from the 1950s housewife to a 20s flapper. At first, she's doing exactly what it is that she's been programmed to do. So she is whatever it is he wants her to be. But we soon find out that Joy really does have a sense of self. And we find that when Kay buys her the Emanator and she goes outside into the rain for the first time. So when we see her experience rain, she's in the shot by herself. And this reveals a moment that is 100% for herself. She does not experience this great sense of euphoria on Kay's behalf. We also see that there is green lighting shining behind her. The color green is associated with what is natural in the world. This emphasizes Joy's extreme desire to be natural, and this is her first step in becoming real. We also see Joy act of her own free will when she hires Mariette to be the physical body so that she and Kay can be together. Kay actually tells her that you don't have to do this, and I don't think that she's doing it for him. I think that she's choosing to do this for herself. There's no evidence to show that Kay ever asked of this kind of physical relationship, and it really is that Joy becomes sort of obsessed with the idea of what it means to be human. She wants to experience this physical act of love to get closer to being a human. And with every new experience, she becomes a real person. And then the ultimate human experience that Joy undergoes is having Kay break the antenna with the chip that has all of her programming. So for the first time in her whole existence, the possibility of death is real. And there's really nothing more human than dying. She makes the choice to leave, not because Kay wants her to, but because she genuinely loves him and she wants to go and be with him. And this form of sacrifice gets her even closer to her dream of, like Pinocchio, becoming a real boy or a real girl in this place. And the question of whether or not she's real doesn't really matter, because if both she and Kay believe that she's a real person and they act of their own free will, or at least they believe they're acting of their own free will, then that makes them real. So now I'm going to move on to the section where we look at familial love and how that kind of influences the film as well. So it's Kay's romantic connection that he has with Joy that really fuels his ability to want to help Deckard reunite with Anna, and he understands that connection between the father and the daughter. And perhaps for the first time, he really understands what Deckard means when he says that sometimes loving a person means that you have to be a stranger to them. And then I also believe that Kay has love for Anna as a sister because, like I've said before, I'm convinced that Kay is the identical genetic copy of Anna. So the strongest evidence comes at the end of the film when Joe is dying on the steps and he feels the snow. And yes, I'm going to start calling him Joe because I feel like at this point in the movie, he really is Joe. So we then cut to a shot where we see Anna making a memory of the snow falling. And I believe she's making that memory because she's actually experiencing what Joe is experiencing at that very moment. And this shows their kind of psychic connection that they have because they are made up of the same genetic material. And in addition, Joe wears a green coat for the duration of the film. In fact, Frasier tells Mariette to go over to the guy in the green coat, implying Joe earlier on in the film. This proves that Joe is associated with what is natural, and I believe he's Anna's brother. Now, we can't be sure if he was actually made by replicants to be the exact genetic makeup of Anna, or if he is her natural twin brother, but we can kind of reconcile the fact that they seem to be two parts of the same whole. So when Joe finds out that he's not the one, he asks Frasier, well, I thought that it was a boy who was born. And she says, well, that's only a piece of the puzzle. But then we never find out exactly how that is a piece of the puzzle during the whole rest of the movie. And Frasier's the only living person who was there at the birth of the child, and she only has one eye, which could symbolize that she only sees part of the truth. What's more is that Rachel dies during childbirth, and being that she is a really strong replicant who could probably sustain a great deal of pain and injury without dying, I think it makes more sense that she would be giving birth to twins rather than just a singular child. And if they were twins, they would have the same genetic makeup because in humans, identical twins have 99.9% of the exact same DNA. So I think it would be safe to say that for replicants, they might have a 100% match of DNA. How would you know? There's never been a birth of a child before. So I think that it is completely possible. And this theory even helps to further emphasize the fatherly bond that's between Deckard and Joe. So when Deckard asks Joe, why are you doing this for me? And then Joe just smiles for the very first time in the movie. And he says, go see your daughter. I don't think he's just doing that as a moment of self-sacrifice where he's simply trying to be there for the good of his community. I think that he's doing it so that he can reunite part of his family together. And he's gotten to spend some time with his father figure, or his father, depending on however you want to look at it. And now it's time for Deckard to be with his daughter. Further evidence of Joe and Anna's two parts of the same whole argument comes from the memory of hiding the wooden horse. So when you look at the scenes where you see the child replicant slaves, they look either one of two ways. So the boys either have completely shaved heads, or the girls who have this longer hair. You don't see any child that is anywhere in between that, except for the child in the memory hiding the wooden horse. So this child is somewhere in the middle of what the boy's haircut looks like and what the girl's haircut looks like. And I think this shows that they have a sort of shared experience. Now, I'm not saying that they are the same person or the same character. I don't think that at all. But I think this really does show this very psychic intertwined connection that these two characters have with each other. And then this leads me to the fact that I think that Anna, Joe, and Joy may actually represent the Holy Trinity. So they are the only three characters that have associations with the color green throughout the film, which is often associated with life, renewal, and nature. Anna represents God because she is able to create worlds around her and create memories for the replicants. She's even able to form creatures however she sees fit, just like the fly, where she changes the way that the fly looks. And then you have Joe, who is Jesus Christ, because he believes that he is the one. And even when he believes that he's not the one, he still sacrifices himself, not only for his family, but also for the good of the community. And then I think Joy is the Holy Spirit because she's kind of like this ephemeral being that never takes on a physical form, and the Holy Spirit was always supposed to be with Jesus during his time on earth, just as Joy never leaves Joe's side for the length of the entire movie. And so this proves that these three characters, they are the divine, they're the divine order. And now connected to that, I'm just going to go off on a little tangent on numbers. So Neander Wallace mentions the number 9, saying that they only have 9 worlds and that children can count to 9 on both of their hands. He is obsessed with growing and reaching that divine number of 10. He states that he wants to storm the gates of Eden, which connects to the first image of Anna, in which she is created a version of Eden. In the Bible, 9 symbolizes finality or judgment. Neander has reached the end of his journey, and though he wants to be God, he can never quite get there. So 10 symbolizes completeness of the divine order. So where do we see the number 10 in the film? Well, it's staring us in the face throughout. 6/10/21, the birthday of Anna, or Anna and Joe if you want to go with my theory. So if you add the numbers together, you'll get 10. So 6 plus 1 plus 2 plus 1 is 10. The screenwriters could have chosen any birthday they wanted, but this is the proof that Anna and the replicants represent what is divine. Also the fact that the number 10 is right in the middle of that birthday. Isn't that so cool? I started freaking out when I put all of that together, and that's what makes this film so beautiful, is every time you go to the theater, there's a new detail or there's a new theory that you can pull out, and it's gonna make me watch this movie maybe like 100 times in my life. It's very, very possible. So the last thing that I want to look at is the importance of love of the community. So while Joe does sacrifice himself for Anna and Deckard, he also does so for the community as a whole. And there's one scene that really foreshadows the fact that he's going to choose sacrifice over himself, and that is when he sees the bees and when he gets to Las Vegas. So when he sees them, he's confused. He has absolutely no idea what they are. So at first there's a singular bee which represents Joe's quest for self-discovery. So he then proceeds to stick his hand in the hive, and a large amount of bees come out. Bees represent community, brightness, and personal power. We need bees to sustain life. The fact that there are bees means that the planet has a future. The bees will allow for pollination of flowers and crops, so perhaps one day the planet can become an Eden. So in effect, at this point in the story, Joe gains personal power by facing his identity and his own existence while simultaneously choosing to better the community. Bees often represent miracles because they are themselves miracles. Their bodies are too big and they're not aerodynamic enough to fly. So through evolution, their wings started to flap faster and they're able to do something that they were never meant to do. So just like a miracle, the replicants, they shouldn't be able to disobey. They shouldn't be able to have children. They shouldn't be able to have a sense of self, but they do. At the end of the day, Blade Runner 2049 is all about love. And there is a great scene towards the end between Deckard and Neander when Neander says to Deckard that pain reminds you that the joy you felt was real. And while that does ring true to a lot of the characters, there's Deckard's response a little bit later in the film that I appreciate even more when he says, "I know what's real." And what's real to him is love. It doesn't matter if, it's a human or a replicant. What makes any living creature real is love. And that's such a beautiful message and idea from the film, and it's a great place to end this video. So I just wanted to thank all of you guys for watching this. I've had so much fun really analyzing this film and talking to you guys in the comments. Your excitement for the movie made me even more excited than I already was, and it made me want to go out and see the film and find more nuggets that I could bring back to you guys. And I didn't expect it to be anything when I was making these videos, like nothing at all. So I really, really am grateful for the very kind response that has been taken. So I just wanted to thank all of you for that. So with this video, please leave a comment as well so that we can talk about some of the things that I brought up today. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And remember, it is always in fashion to go out, get dressed up, and make it a cinema chic night. Bye, everyone.